So far we have created a GPO, we've edited that GPO, and now it's time to link it up. Let's do something with it. And again, the first time you go into the group policy management and start to move around in this thing, it's going to feel a little bit clunky because it's not apparent in what order you do things here. But just understand that we can basically create a group policy object and then link it to any of our OUs and so forth. Now notice, I meant to point out this to you, that I can create a new organizational unit right here. So if I want to create a new organizational unit called Sales OU, I can create that right here. Then I can start to do group policy things to it. So number one, that's kind of a freebie, not really part of the outline here, but I just wanted you to see that. And it's kind of cool that you can build your organizational unit structure in here and build your group policy structure all in this one location. So now we created this Mark group policy object. How do I link it, say, to the East OU? Well, you'll notice if I right click on it, there's not really anything here about it, but I do want to point out one thing before I link it. And you may see some of this on the exam, but again, if you go out and read about group policy like you're supposed to before you take the exam, you will notice that this GPO right now is enabled. That means it will work. And keep in mind that if I click this, I can disable that GPO, and that basically turns it off. But then I can tell it to disable the user configuration settings or the computer configuration settings, or I can disable the whole thing. Keep in mind there could be situations where you want just the user side of this to be enforced or just the computer side. And it's not unusual for people to turn off the computer side on this because they only want the user side to go. Does that make sense? Because we're only trying to make user changes here. There's no point in wasting the time or the processing power for computer things to go. So anyway, that's something you'll have to read about. One thing you will see with this whole GPO thing, there's a lot of things that you can set, and a lot of things that you can do. So let's get back to linking this GPO. If I go out to, say, the West OU and right click on it, you notice I have a choice here to link an existing GPO. If I click that, all I have to do is come down and point at Mark and say OK, and you'll notice now if I click on West, I have now linked Mark. We start to get into this issue of having multiple GPOs, and keep in mind if I have multiple GPOs, then as these GPOs get assigned, they start to overwrite one another. So what's going to happen in this instance, Mark will be applied first and then hide run bar will be applied. And if I want to change that, I can just highlight the one I want to move and click that, and notice I move Mark to the top. So as you see, you need to think this through to see exactly what you want to do. Now I want to point out one other thing that's here that will confuse you a little bit. It's easy to see that the GPO status is enabled. The link is enabled, so it is linked up and it's working and it's going to work. But what is this enforced about? If I set enforced on a GPO, it means that other GPOs can't override it farther down the line. So as you can tell, now we're getting into a lot more switches, on and off, yes, no, enabled or not, enforced or not. So there are a lot of ways that you can twist and turn group policy to get your entire environment looking and behaving just like you want to. Now, can this get confusing? Yes. Can it get problematic? Yes. So again, you will need to think it through and make sure that you can get it just like you want it. So the bottom line is we are simply going to go to whatever container that we want to be linked to, link an existing GPO, and choose it. And notice I've just linked Mark to the east, and there it is. I can link Mark to the domain. Notice link an existing, and I can set it there, and then I can come down here and I can set it on my site as well, link an existing GPO. Pretty easy to link these things. They're a lot easier to link and build than they are to think through and really kind of consider what all I'm doing to my environment as I do all this stuff. So anyway, that's how to link a GPO, plus a bunch of other stuff. It's real hard to talk about group policy without constantly throwing in, oh, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing. But the main thing I wanted you to take from that is how to link your GPO once you have built it and then edited it to the way you want it to operate.